Okay, a couple more requests on how to find the inverse of a function. So how do you find the inverse of a function? The very first thing you need to do whenever you're finding the inverse of a function is you first need to know if it is a one-to-one function. Basically, if it's in y equals mx plus b, does it pass the vertical line test and does it pass the horizontal line test? So whenever you have y equals mx plus b, you know that that's just a line. So that is going to pass the vertical line test, and that's going to pass the horizontal line test. So yes, it has an inverse. So that's the first thing your brain needs to be thinking about. So now that we know that it does pass the vertical line test and the horizontal line test, we need to go ahead and actually solve for this and find the inverse. So how do we go about doing that? Well, it's very simple. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to replace f of x with y. So you're going to have y is equal to negative 1/5 x plus 2. Then you are going to swap x and y. I'm simply going to swap x and y. So this is going to be x is equal to negative 1/5 y plus 2. Now you're simply going to solve for y. So if I'm solving for y, I have to go ahead and get rid of that 2. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So that gives me an x minus the 2 is equal to negative 1/5 times y. That is bad y. Sorry, y'all. I missed my smart board. Okay, so now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to multiply both sides by negative 5. Why? Because the reciprocal of a fraction is what's going to get rid of it. But I'm going to put parentheses around both sides. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want that negative 5 to go to every single term on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side, if I distribute that in, that's negative 5x plus 10 is equal to y. Then that means f inverse, f to the negative 1, is equal to negative 5x plus 10. That is the inverse. And you are done with that problem. Now that one was pretty simple, but the next one isn't going to be as simple. It's going to be a little bit more thought process going on. So we're going to do the same procedure. You're going to go ahead and you're going to replace f of x with y. So I have y is equal to 1 over the square root of x. Well, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to say, okay, well, what did we do before? Well, in the last problem, we turned f of x into y, and then we swap x and y. So this is going to become x is equal to 1 over the square root of y. Now you have to solve for y. So how do you solve for y? I'm going to put this over 1, and I'm going to make a fraction equaling a fraction. So if I have a fraction equaling a fraction, you simply cross multiply. The square root of y times x is equal to 1. Now remember, you're solving for y. So what is attached to the y? What is attached to the y is the x, and it is attached by multiplication. So since it's attached by multiplication, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide both sides by x. So that cancels out and you're left with the square root of y is equal to 1 over x. Now, how do I get rid of a root? The opposite of this root that you have right here is going to be a power, which means you are simply going to, instead of taking the square root of both sides, you are going to square both sides. So that makes the power and the root cancel out, and you now have y is equal to, now remember, these are two different bases, so this has to go to both bases. So this is going to be a 1 squared over an x squared. So y is equal to 1 over x squared, and that is going to be your f inverse. Okay, and that is how you're going to do the inverse questions. If you have any more questions, guys, email me and I will do a video for you.